Please remember to turn off your cell phones. The parking validation machine for a garage under City Hall is located at the rear of the chambers, right at the top of the stairs. Following roll call during summary of hearing procedures, we'll review how the public may provide comment during today's session. At this time, please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. No worries. We'll take roll call now. Myself, Chair Justin Lardenois, I'm here. Vice Chair Ellis Wise.
Here.
Commissioner Borosio.
Here.
Commissioner Bickford.
Here.
Commissioner Cantrell.
Here.
Commissioner Casey is not present. Commissioner Garcia is not present. Commissioner Oliveria. Here. Commissioner Rosario is not present. Commissioner Tordios.
Here.
And then Commissioner Young has informed me he will not be present as well. All right. Summary of, and so that's 7 in attendance? Okay. Okay.
We do have a
Quorum, right. And just, I think you mentioned before the meeting, Robert, that we need a 3/4 quorum for the...
General plan,
yeah, okay. For the general plan.
What required here is recommending action on the general plan with the action affirmative vote, not less than majority, so it's basically majority is fine.
Okay. All right. So we're good on quorum. Thanks for clarifying that. All right. Summary of hearing procedures. If you want to address the commission, please fill out a speaker card located on the table near the audiovisual technician and deposit the completed card in the basket. There are also speaker cards in the back of the chambers and at the side entrance. The procedure for this hearing is as follows. After staff's presentation, applicants and/or appellants may make up to a 5-minute presentation. During the public comment period, the chair will call out names on the submitted speaker cards in the order received from those members of the public who attended in person. As your name is called, line up in front of the microphone at the front of the chamber. For members of the public who attend by teleconference, the meeting technician will connect those persons who desire to speak to the commission so they may be heard. Generally, each speaker will be given up to 2 minutes for public testimony, and speakers using a translator will have up to 4 minutes. At the discretion of the chair, the time allotted to each speaker may be changed depending on the number of items on the agenda, number of speakers, and other factors. Speakers using a translator will have double the time allotted. After public testimony, the applicant and/or appellant may make closing remarks for up to an additional 5 minutes. Planning commissioners may ask questions of the speakers. In response to commissioner questions will not reduce the speaker's time allowance. The public hearing will then be closed, and the planning commission will take action on the item. The planning commission may request staff to respond to the public testimony, ask staff questions, and discuss the item. If you challenge these land use decisions in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at this public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. The planning commission's action on rezonings, pre-zonings, general plan amendments, and code amendments is only advisory to the city council. The City Council will hold public hearings on these items. Section 20.120.400 of the Municipal Code provides the procedures for legal protests to the City Council on rezonings and pre-zonings. The Planning Commission's action on conditional use permits is appealable to the City Council in accordance with Section 20.100.220 of the Municipal Code. Agendas and all staff reports for this meeting may be accessed at the Planning Commission's website. Let's see. Would this be the right time to ask about ex parte communications? So, have any members of the commission had any ex parte communications with anyone who has business before the commission tonight? Okay, see none. So we'll go to call the order and orders of the day. Before we begin, I want to remind the planning commission members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct in meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers will not engage in a conversation with the commissioners or staff. All members of the Planning Commission, staff, and public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Repeated failure to comply with the Code of Conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, may result in removal from the meeting. This meeting of the Planning Commission will now come to order. At this time, we'll go to general public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. There's no one in the chamber tonight. Do we have anyone on Zoom for public comment?
We do have 2 hands raised.
Okay, so let me just go over the procedure real quick then. So as I said, this is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes. The commission cannot take any formal action without the item being properly noticed and placed on an agenda. In response to public comment, the planning commission is limited to the following options: responding to statements made or questions posed by members of the public, or requesting staff to report back on a matter at a subsequent meeting, or directing staff to place the item on a future agenda. So at this time, let's go ahead and hear from the folks who have their hands raised on Zoom.
Manuel Rodriguez, please unmute your device.
And you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Tuesday, 9/11, the Holocaust never happened. Hitler was right.
Okay, let's, yes, I just want to remind everyone to respect the code of conduct that was stated earlier. Let's go to the next speaker.
Okay, Chris.
Hello, my name is Chris Giangreco. I'm the Vice President of the Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association. I spoke to one of the staff in planning earlier today, the support staff for the Planning Commission. They said the 425 Winchester Olin Hotel project was supposed to come up on the Planning Commission meeting for the 15th, and that it has been pushed back to December 6th. The neighborhood has a lot of concerns about this development. We just wanted to talk briefly to the Planning Commission and let you folks know that we will be sending emails and other comments to the Planning Commission ahead of the December 6th new date. And we hope that the Planning Commission will take into account those concerns and digest that information before they make a decision on the Olin Hotel. The setback requirements, the daylight planing and the height requirements, as well as the rezoning of the 390 Spar property, all give us great concern that particularly that these will require a general plan text amendment. And we have plenty of concerns about this as a neighborhood and as residents backing up to this property. We'll let those concerns be known through emails to the commission, and we hope that you'll process those accordingly before making any decisions on that project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any other public comments?
We have 2 raised hands. Matthew North, please unmute your device.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for, or the Planning Commission, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I would like for people to look into why the Holocaust is a legal
Okay,
question.
let's not be doing this
Why
right
the
now.
Jews aren't
Okay,
kicked out of our
can we
country yet.
please cut off the speaker? Thank you. I just want to address, again, we have a code of conduct for these meetings. This is a forum for members of the public to comment on city business. We just had 2 people say the exact same thing. It's not funny or clever. It's juvenile, and it's not welcome and not allowed here. Next speaker, please.
Madison.
Hi. I just want to agree with you. We really should be focusing on city matters. As such, I would like to talk about building a white
Madison, I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you. Could you speak more directly into the microphone? Madison, you still there? Staff, did we lose the speaker?
No, Madison, could you unmute your device? You are muted now. Okay, she had left the meeting. We have one last hand raised right now.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Lincoln Rockwell.
My name is George Lincoln Rockwell, and I would like to suggest a resolution for your meeting here. We need a lot of books in our libraries. I have written many books myself. You need to have the George Lincoln Rockwell books. You need to have the books written by Dr. Tony Martin. You need to have the books written by the Nation of Islam. You need to have the books written by Martin Luther. You need to have the books written by Henry Ford. These will teach you a lot about the world today, because what we have going on has happened throughout history. There are nation wreckers, and there are people that commit crimes, and they try to steal from other people. They lie to other people. They do these things, and these are not tolerable. In the past, these people would have been thrown in jail, but it seems that if they get to a certain level of running something, that they are not held accountable to their actions. And this is unacceptable. A lot of people are feeling this right now, and I would like to tell y'all that it's not going to slide anymore. You can say that it's infantile or whatever, but really, if you don't know what you're doing when you're the captain of a ship, then you don't know what course there is. There are shipwreckers out there that will misguide you with the lighthouse. They will tell you to go somewhere and you'll crash into the rocks. So you have to have all of the data when you are navigating a ship. And as people that are running a planning commission such as yourselves, I suggest you seriously consider getting these books in this council, okay? And I will leave you with one quote from the book, the WP book by George Lincoln Rockwell. Without a deadly hate of that which threatens what we love, love it is an empty catchword for hippies, queers, and cowards.
Okay, all right, that's
So, I'll
enough.
leave
We
you
can
with
end this comment now. All right, at the advice of the city attorney, we're gonna close this public comment period. All right, we will move on the agenda to deferrals and removals from calendar. It's my understanding we don't have anything for that right now. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. And tonight, our consent calendar is just the minutes from our previous meeting on October 11th. We have a motion from Commissioner Oliverio to approve those minutes. Do we have a second? A second from, I believe, Commissioner Bickford? All right. If there are no amendments to be made to the minutes, we'll go to a roll call vote. Vice Chair Ellis Wise?
Yes.
Commissioner Borosio?
Yes.
Commissioner Bickford?
Yes.
Commissioner Cantrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey is not present. Commissioner Garcia is also not present. Commissioner Oliverio?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosario is not present. Commissioner Tortillas?
Yes.
Commissioner Young's not present. And myself, yes. So that passes. Great. We'll continue on the agenda. We don't have any items for public hearing. So we'll go to open the general plan hearing for 2023 Cycle 4. We have no items on the consent calendar, but for the general plan public hearing, we have GP 23-008, 23-109, and C23-110, which regards the Capital Caltrain Urban Village Plan. Is there a staff presentation for this item?
There is.
Okay, great. So we'll hear the staff presentation, then we'll take public comment, and then we'll go to a commission discussion.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so just a little bit of background on the Capital Caltrain Urban Village Plan. So back, I believe it was 2018, Councilmember Maya Esparza, together with Councilmember Sergio Jimenez, initiated a Monterey Corridor Task Force to really address issues of blight, the need for beautification on Monterey Corridor. So if you recall, Monterey Corridor is US 101 into San Jose. It is the historic gateway into San Jose. It was bypassed, I don't know, in the 50s or 60s by the new 101 at some point. So the corridor was really suffering. It is an older corridor that has a lot of industrial uses. It's one of our main industrial areas in the city of San Jose. It has a lot of motels dating back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s that are pretty run down. Most recently, it's had a lot of problems with graffiti and trash, and particularly homeless encampments, particularly along the Southern Pacific Railroad right-of-way on Monterey Highway, and was really in need of getting cleaned up and beautified. So my Councilmember Esparza and Jimenez started a task force of neighborhood leaders, business owners, and property owners to come up with a sort of strategy on how to improve the corridor. One of the things they wanted to see was opportunities for new housing and new investment to sort of spur some change and beautification along the corridor. And as part of that process, the Caltrain train station at Blossom Hill, which is just north of Capitol Expressway on Monterey Highway, was selected as a great opportunity to do an urban village and create an urban village of mixed use and higher density residential uses. That went to that recommendation went to the 4-year review of the General Plan Task Force in 2020, 2021. And the task force recommended to council, and the council approved the creation of a brand new urban village that was not in the general plan, which is the Caltrain Urban Village Plan. And then we got money through a state grant, and we conducted this urban village planning process over about 1.5 years. And so tonight what you're hearing is the results of that 1.5 year effort. I just want to note that this urban village plan, the process was a lot more streamlined, and the actual document is a lot more streamlined than past urban village planning process, with the goal of trying to of creating a process that's much more efficient to get these plans done in quicker order. So this is a good model of how plans can be done going forward. So I think you're obviously familiar with the general plan, the urban village strategy, and the general plan. This urban village is what's called a regional transit urban village. These are urban villages that are on BART or Caltrain, and they are intended to facilitate walkable, mixed-use environments that support and are integrated with the major transit investment in that village. So this shows the boundary of the urban village. It is on the east side of Monterey Highway, just east of the railroad tracks, as well as the Granite Rock facility on the west side of the tracks. It's also east of Communications Hill, and it's north of Capitol Expressway, where Capitol Expressway crosses Monterey Highway. Just some sort of stats. Overall, it's about 16 acres. Coming out of the general plan, it's planned for 100 jobs or 30,000 square feet of commercial space, 100 dwelling units. I should note that right now there's the ridership on Caltrain is not that high. It's 60 passengers a day. There's 3 trains each way per day, but the service is planned to be improved, with anywhere between 280 to 1,600, almost 1,700 projected passengers by 2040. The future plans for Caltrain, of course, are not solidified, but the idea is that the service will increase to some level in the coming years. And the planning process occurred over 2022 and 2023. So the outreach was done. We did the notification of a 1,000-foot radius. There were over 4,300 mailings. We had 2 workshops with about 30 attendees at each of the workshops, and we had a dedicated website, and we did social media on Twitter, Nextdoor, and Facebook. So there were a number of key issues that were resolved through the process. I'm not going to go through these now, but we'll talk about that as we go through the plan. In general, there was general consensus about the direction of the plan that you're going to see tonight. So the urban village vision really is is that this urban village is envisioned to be a well-connected community that promotes local business and amenities, integrates community gathering and open spaces, promotes safe streets for pedestrian access, and addresses the need for housing in San Jose. And the four guiding principles were about promoting new commercial development, although I will say there's very limited commercial development in this plan, but it is the idea of promoting commercial development as really an amenity to serve the surrounding neighborhood that's already there, as well as new residents. Creating a central open space, I'll talk about that. That was a really critical need identified by the community. And then enhancing pedestrian safety and priority, particularly in terms of accessing the station across on the other side of Monterey Highway. And of course, fostering housing development. Housing is really the major component of this plan. So let me talk about land use. So I went over this already. This is sort of the parameters of what we were planning for within this urban village. And just to give you an idea of what's there now, so on the northern block, number 1 is existing motels. There's also the Southern Kitchen is there. Block number 2 is a park and ride lot for Caltrain that's owned by VTA. Block 3 is on the corner, a tire shop, and the rest of it is kind of underutilized for, I think, truck storage. Number 4 is an existing auto dealership. I think it's now Carvana. And then 5 has a grocery store and a vacant commercial that was a nightclub that got shut down a number of years ago. And then on the number 6 is a church in the back, and then a number of community serving and also regional serving retail uses, including the world famous DiMaggio's that has the Stromboli that everyone talks about. So we were told, don't touch DiMaggio's. So that was actually one of our guiding principles that was unstated in this plan. And so the land use plan is designed to accommodate the planned growth, to create a mixed-use transit and pedestrian supportive environment. It concentrates employment adjacent to transit. Let me say it's not a lot of employment. One of the things that we found in this plan is there's not a lot more demand for more employment along this corridor. So the amount of commercial space is very limited in this plan. It's primarily a housing-focused plan. And then the plan develops densities or promotes densities that support ridership of not just Caltrain. I want to say that the Monterey Highway has some of the most frequent bus service in the South Bay, and there's planned service expansions in Monterey too. So actually I neglected to say this, most of the transit ridership, both now and probably in the future, is going to be the buses along Monterey Highway. And then the land use plan, I just want to note that as part of the package, there are rezonings as part of, for your consideration tonight, that actually are consistent with and implement the land use diagram in this plan. So there's 2 designations. The one in, the one in the north is urban village. The one in the south is urban residential. And that shows you the densities and the heights. The urban village to the north is denser. It has a minimum density of 65 dwellings per acre, up to 130. We anticipate that development there would occur on the lower range in this area. Urban residential, a minimum of 40 and upwards of 95. And so that's a bit lower density. Those properties are not as deep as the ones in the north. There is some mixed-use neighborhood and neighborhood community commercial, which is more reflecting existing uses that are intended to be preserved. This is the height diagram. The darker the color, the greater the height. So 90 feet up in the north, and then tapering down to 70 feet in the mid-block, and then 50 and 45 in the south. I do want to actually cover... Oh, I should mention, actually, I forgot to should have mentioned this, that I'm actually not the project manager. I'm the deputy director, obviously, and the project manager and the supervisor, who is very instrumental in leading this project, could not be here tonight. One of them's on medical leave, and the other one had a planned vacation. This was actually planned to go to Planning Commission last week or 2 weeks ago, so I'm pinch hitting for them tonight. But I just want to give them credit for all the work that they did. One thing I do want to note is because of DiMaggio's, I'm joking, but not entirely, the southern part of the village is planned for neighborhood community commercial, not for housing development or significant new growth. The reason for that is there are existing community serving uses that are there. We don't anticipate, as I said, the demand for additional commercial, but there's a grocery store there. There are there are services, there are restaurants that the neighbors use. Part of a mixed village, really, it's really important that people have things that they can ride a bike to, they can walk to, or maybe they drive, but they're just driving a quarter of a mile and not a couple miles. And so the idea is that really we should preserve and enhance the existing commercial that's already there, because it is serving the neighborhood, and that's the feedback we actually heard from the community, and not layer on a general plan designation for higher density housing that might displace the businesses that are there that serve the community. Oops. Oops, I'm going back, I'm sorry. So urban design. So one thing I want to say about this is that going forward, most urban village plans will rely on the citywide design standards that were developed or approved a couple years ago by the City Council. I believe they were considered by the Planning Commission as well. And those are modern standards for more urban development in San Jose throughout the city. Prior to that, each urban village plan did their own unique design standards. So there was inconsistencies between the plans. It was a lot more work to develop, and now we have these citywide design standards. So generally going forward, when we have these urban village plans, we just refer to those citywide design standards. However, when there are unique situations or conditions in an urban village or desires or concerns of the community, there will be cases where there's some unique standards. And there are some standards and policies specific to this urban village, but generally it refers to the citywide design standard. What I'm going to tell you about now is a concept that was developed. So this shows a development, a prototype that adheres to both the land use, heights, and design standards of the citywide design standards as well as the standards in this plan. It's not to say that this is exactly what's going to happen. Probably what would get built someday is not this, but I think there will be those characteristics of this that probably will be incorporated in the development that occurs. And there's some key elements that the community would like to see that staff would advocate for including in future development. So the areas the design concepts are broken into 3 sections, the North Block, Mid Block, and South Block, and I'll quickly walk through those. I just want to note that the 2 main roads kind of coming into connecting this village with the surrounding neighborhood to the east is Rancho and Farron. So a big part of the design concept was how to improve those roads for pedestrians, particularly Farron Drive, which connects to the Caltrain. So here's the gateway node, the primary gateway at Farron and Monterey Highway, which is the connection to the train station, showing the concept of mixed-use residential with ground floor retail at the intersection. This is the only place in the plan that plans for new commercial, and it's really meant to be more of placemaking for maybe there's a dry cleaner that serves the neighborhood, a coffee shop, a convenience store, the kind of things that people going to and from the station, the residents that would live here, as well as the neighborhood can use, but it's really not planning for significant new commercial, as I mentioned. And then much of the focus is on improving the pedestrian environment across Monterey Highway, also creating buildings that are set back from the street, so there's opportunities for a comfortable walking environment, and potentially outdoor seating areas for people in the community. Here's a conceptual concept of what that intersection would look like. Here's Rancho Drive, which really is much more about enhancing the pedestrian environment, but really not necessarily about new development. New development could occur, but we anticipate that it would, the plan is for commercial, and it would probably look something like this. But it's more about, really enhancing the walkability, making roadway modifications to tighten up the intersection, enhance the crosswalks, to make it much more attractive and pleasant environment. Also, a goal of this is to really plant street trees along Monterey Highway to provide shade. It helps make more comfortable walking environment. It can actually slow traffic, believe it or not. Trees can actually encourage motorists to go slower. And then I think some of the key concepts, which I'll show, and I think there's another diagram coming up, but is about this concept of a paseo that runs from north to south in the middle of the block, that would run behind much of the development and in the northern block in between the development, that provides opportunities for people to walk to the commercial to the south, and just gives people another opportunity or option to walk to Farron to get on the train, or to go wherever they're going to go without walking on Monterey Highway. So the goal is to improve the walkability of Monterey Highway, but it is a pretty busy road, so wanted to give an alternative to the east. The other main concept is providing a 1-acre park, which could be public or could be private, but publicly accessible, on the VTA lot on the north side of Farron. And this is something we really heard from the community, is that they need a public gathering space where they can hang out, meet with their neighbors, their kids can play. And so that was really, really important to them. And I touched upon some of this. Here's just another diagram that shows the paseo and the desired park, the plan for a park at north side of Farron. Circulation and streetscape. So this is just kind of showing you the idea of creating ways for pedestrians to get around that separates them from motorists, and also provides access to the parking garage for VTA that anticipated would be built someday, to serve the train station, and and access to the development that comes off of Monterey Highway, so that while people could access development and the parking garage in Farron, there are other ways to get to it, so we don't have, it disperses the traffic over a larger area. So there's Farron Drive now. I think we already kind of showed this already, another cross-section showing bike lanes, travel lanes, flex zone, sidewalk. And then on to parking. So this conceptual plan does assume parking rates or parking levels. This is just used for the purpose of developing the concept. This is not to say this is what will be built. San Jose does not have minimum parking requirements. We don't have maximums. We have policies that have implications if you build a lot of parking. You have to do more multimodal improvements, but we don't have maximums at this time. There is assumed that there will be parking provided by private development. Generally, it's about 1 space per unit in this concept. It also assumes that there will be about 160 spaces that are used for a park and ride lot for VTA. That number the need could be greater in the future, which would mean that needs to be a bigger parking garage, potentially would result in less development, maybe. Or there could be the need for less parking, we don't know. But this is assuming essentially that the current amount of parking that is utilized now would be used in the future. And so there is a parking garage assumed in the north block, and that parking garage would serve both the VTA park and ride as well as the development in the area. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Some of the parking is shared, and some of it is dedicated to the residential uses. And then there's sort of the mid block. The buildings are assumed also to be podiums, so there's parking within the building. It's the parking garage is primarily there for the purposes of the VTA park and ride lot, as well as providing additional parking for residents. So staff recommendation is to amend the addendum to the final general plan EIR, adopt a resolution on the general plan amendments to make the land use changes that I showed you in the plan to the transportation diagram, land use transportation diagram, and to adopt the Capital Urban Village Station Area Plan, or I should say, to make a recommendation to council that they do that. There's also, as I mentioned, our recommendation to you is that you recommend to council that they approve the conforming rezonings. Just a note, in the past, when we would do plans like this, we wouldn't rezone the land. Per council direction and state law now, we have to rezone the land when we change the general plan. So that through this action, development will have a much more streamlined and clear path forward. And that ends the staff presentation.
Thank you, Michael. We'll go to public comment. We still have an empty chamber, so it'll just be on Zoom. And as a reminder, please follow the code of conduct, and this is only for comments about the item at hand. Staff, do we have any hands up for public comment?
We have one. Michael Hunt, go ahead and unmute your device.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, fuck niggers.
Okay, that's enough. Next commenter.
Oh, we have no more comments.
Okay. Well then, we will go to commission discussion. Let me reset my thing back to the speaker list. Okay, great. Yeah, we're going to the commission, so any comments on this urban village plan? Oh, Vice Chair Nellis-Wise?
Hello, I grew up in District 7, not far from here. So I do go to DiMaggio's. I've been to the grocery store there. Actually, the nightclub was where the grocery store is now.
Oh, it is. And that's where, was it Chris Brown? Who played there?
I don't know.
It was a famous
Long time
rapper,
ago.
R&B guy about 10 years ago, and that was the end of that club.
Yeah, it had a lot of problems, but it was still a lot of fun. I have a lot of friends and family that went there. So I think this is a great project. I think this is something that's much needed in the community. So I'm completely in support of this. I think that definitely this area needs a facelift, and this is the beginning of it. So thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
Second. Okay, there's a motion from Vice Chair Nellis-Wise to approve the staff recommendation, correct?
Correct.
And a second from Commissioner Oliverio. And so we'll continue discussion at this time. Commissioner Borosio?
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, it looked very in-depth. I do have a question around the upgrades of the trees and the paseo. Is that going into private property? Is that going to be a joint expenditure, or is that city property that will develop our own property?
So the paseo is anticipated to be part of the private development and privately owned. So it's the kind of space where we would ask the developer to provide that, and it could count towards their what we call our parks dedication, parks impact ordinance obligation, or their parks requirements. They could count that towards that, but we want it to be publicly accessible. Now the park itself that's a question mark. That could be a city park. They could, the Parks Department has to agree to accept it, but they could actually donate the land to the city, and if their obligation is such that they need to provide more, they could actually do some basic improvements to it, give it to the city, and then the city would accept it either as a turnkey park, or they would accept the land, and as they have money, they would develop it or enhance it further. Or it could be what we call a POPO, privately owned but publicly accessible space. So that's really to be determined.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, by making this part of Monterey Road, an urban village, and designating it as such. Does that make and force the private property owners to look like the renderings, or is it just going to be an offering to please conform to this, and they may say yes, they may say no?
Yeah, it's more of a concept. It's a concept to illustrate to the community, decision makers and a potential developer about what we're seeking in this area, and sort of the design concepts. I think, to be honest with you, are we thinking or desiring a development look exactly like this? No, we don't think it actually will look like this, but I think there are elements of it, like the paseo, a park somewhere within on one of the properties. Those are some of the key elements that we want to see. And then sort of placing the larger development on Monterey and scaling it down a bit as it approaches the neighborhood. Those are some of the key concepts that we advocate for. But the way housing works in the state now, is that, you know, they have to adhere to the objective standards in the plan and other planning documents that we have that apply. And if they adhere to those, they have a path to approval. They can't be denied. They can't be, you know, we can negotiate with them, but it really, so there's a framework they have to adhere to. There is room to do other things within that framework. So it's very likely that there may be other things that turn out in the end.
Okay, and just my last question, the existing property owners, will they be recommended to do some upgrades, or can they stay as they are?
You can always stay the way that you are. It's up to the property owner's discretion to either sell the land to the developer or try to develop it themselves. There is some parameters, though, that the zoning will be changing. So the uses that are there would become grandfathered in if they don't conform, like a tire shop and a used car lot would essentially be grandfathered in. They can do some minor improvements to it and minor additions, but they couldn't do major changes without conforming to the plan. But they can stay.
Perfect, thank you.
Vice Chair Nellis Wise, did you put your hand up again?
I did.
Go ahead.
In regards to the park, just because Monterey Highway is such a busy corridor, I mean, I would only request that in the design guidelines that the playground or even the park be fenced in a way that it creates a little bit more safety for the children.
I mean, that's the kind of design consideration that could be considered as through the process of designing the park. Because Monterey is such a busy highway, if you notice, or I can go back and show you, it's actually moved as far away from Monterey as possible to the very eastern side of the village. So there's development kind of providing a buffer between Monterey and the open space or park.
Mm-hmm. What I've seen along the Monterey corridor most recently is that there's been a lot of like lunch trucks that have been really popular along there and have done really well, along with cruising on the weekends that have brought a lot of families out, which has been really nice. So it would be really nice to have these people have a place to go where they could, you know, spend some money and hang out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, the community agrees, more importantly.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have Commissioner Bickford and then Commissioner Tortillas.
Thank you. This is a sort of a follow-on to what Commissioner Barroso was asking. There's an owner documented here, but this is a city-initiated change. Was the owner involved at all? Are they aware of this city-initiated change, and what input did they have?
So yes. So as a matter of course, the property owners are notified of what we're doing. I'm not aware of any property owners contacting us with questions. I will say that at least one, possibly more, but I do know specifically there was one property owner that participated in both of the community meetings and was pretty excited about it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to second the Vice Chair's comments. This seems like a great project, particularly, impressed by the proposed transit improvements, pedestrianization investments, bike lanes, all of that. And we obviously love to see new housing development near transit. I think the one thing that I noted as I was looking at this map of, the site area is just that there's also multiple blocks of single-family homes that are within about a 15-minute walk of the station here. So I know as part of the housing element, we have the proposed small multifamily housing policy that's looking at allowing, up to 10 units on a parcel. There's a special call out there for, the periphery of urban villages. So my only recommendation here would be that, as staff moves forward with implementing that policy, consider this site and see if it might make sense to add some additional density kind of around the existing urban village boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got some questions myself. So for the height limits in this plan, how did staff come to those?
I think it was kind of a balancing act between responding to neighborhoods not wanting things to overshadow them and also allowing heights that would allow the scale of development or the density of housing that would support transit ridership in this location.
Gotcha.
And so they're higher on the north block because for a couple of reasons. One, the block is deeper, so I think we could get more higher density development in there that would respect the neighborhood and not encroach on them. And it's lower because the middle block is not as deep.
Okay. I guess for me, looking at this, it's as you said, it's a housing-focused plan, and in general, we won't try to concentrate housing around transit as much as we can. It seems to me that even the 90-foot limit at the north of this plan is relatively short for transit-oriented housing development. And I get there's, like you said, it's balancing with feedback from folks who live in the single-family homes nearby, but given the depth of that and even, the renderings show the idea of perhaps having two separate structures in that area, I guess I'm not really sure exactly where I'm going with this, but isn't that relatively low density for this kind of intended use?
Yeah, so there's another reason why the density and the heights are not greater, and that is because we had a market analysis done for this area, and what the analysis said is that sort of medium density that we have for this plan is the kind of development that it isn't feasible at the moment, but it's the kind of development that we could see it be feasible in the foreseeable future. But higher densities, like us planners would be like, oh, let's go. Even the council office at one point said, let's go higher. The more Councilmember Dewan, not Esparza, she had a very different perspective. But I guess we could have done that. But again, this issue came up in Berrien-Sabart actually, where we got a lot of pressure to go even higher in Berrien-Sabart than 12 stories.
Right.
But it was a combination of the community wasn't comfortable with that heights, and our market analysis we hired a consulting firm shows that you're not going to realistically get a developer wanting to build that level of height. And if they do include affordable, they can use density bonus to go higher. So that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing up Berrien-Sabart because I had similar feelings there. And I get the market analysis part of it, but at the end of the day, these are height limits. They're maximums, not minimums. So I think there's value in setting these higher, even if the market leads to something shorter. Fair enough. So I have Commissioner Cantrell's hand up, so I'll pass this to him while I think about it.
So my understanding also is the ridership density isn't going to significantly increase in a way that would make more density absorbable. Is that correct?
You mean in terms of the transit ridership?
Right.
Well, yeah, so what I would say is this. I think the Caltrain ridership will go up. We don't know how much it will go up. A lot is contingent on high-speed rail, and that's a lot of question marks about high-speed rail right now. But it will go up a little bit. I think we're probably to see even more, we see greater ridership. We'll probably continue to see greater ridership and expanded services on the buses on Monterey Highway.
Okay. And also, I would imagine that, I would think that being realistic about densities is probably more advantageous than making everything as high as possible. I also would think that, like you said, there's more opportunity for greater density later as this becomes absorbed. That'll change the community makeup. I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. When your home is worth significantly more, you're willing to sell it and somebody's willing to do more with it. So I think this kind of density is great for this area. It's significantly greater than it already is. And it's a great opportunity, as everyone has said so far, for this community to find greater density and then move forward. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cantrell. And Commissioner Tordios?
Sure, just one more general question for staff as we kind of go about, these sorts of urban village plans. I know there's the note in here that we want to prohibit residential development in the South Block because we want to, preserve the existing commercial space there. I'm wondering how staff views, state laws in recent years that have opened up the possibility of residential development on land that is currently zoned commercial, and how they kind of factor that into their urban village plans when they're trying to set aside land like this that they don't want to be residential.
Yeah, so there is, I'm trying to remember, so I think what's challenging just generally is that, I understand the need for housing, and there are the state laws, SB 6 and AB 2011, which we actually had a hand in sort of helping to shape them. But we have to be mindful that, we want more housing, we need more housing, but we don't want to necessarily clear out all of the types of things, the amenities, the services, the things that people need in their daily life. Because if you do that, you just create a high-density suburb where everybody has to drive a lot in great distances. So there is a provision under state law, and I'm sorry, I was not direct. I'm a little hazy on this, but AB 2011 does have an ability for you to carve out in villages, urban villages, or specific plan areas where you can't use that law. SB 6 I don't think does, so someone probably could come along and use that law in this case, but I'd have to get back to the commission on that to confirm that. Yeah, but I think it really is a balancing act. You want the density, you want the housing, but you want it to come with all the other things that people need in their life. And there are times when Sacramento, in the effort to facilitate housing, and we get it, those things can get lost. And so, as much as we can, we try to remind people of the need for those other things to make a complete community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tordios. I just want to follow up on my comments from earlier and just address Commissioner Cantrell's comments as well. The density here and the ridership at this Caltrain station are interlinked. And I think it's important to take that into consideration of how we approach density here, and also recognize that this is a very small urban village. So it's probably not going to be a situation where something gets built, it impacts ridership, and the market reassesses for the next thing that gets built. There's not much that can potentially be built here. And as we know, once you build something, it's there for many decades before something else gets built there in its place. So if it's friendly to Vice Chair Nellis-Wise, I'd like to include in our recommendation that Council consider increasing the allowable density for residential uses in this urban village plan. And just, I want to also, speak to the market analysis. Like I said, limits are a maximum, not a minimum, and especially in the times we're in right now, the market can change very quickly. So by the time something's built, the market may be in a different situation than it is now. So is that a friendly amendment, Vice Chair Nellis-Wise?
I agree with the friendly amendment.
Okay, and Commissioner Alverio?
Thank you. Are you basically saying on that lower, the mid block, that you want to allow the same height as the north block?
Oh, to be clear, I want council to consider increasing density for both residential blocks here.
Right, just what's on the map. What's within the urban village. There was other comments about increasing density elsewhere in the.
Oh, yeah, this is specific to the urban village plan and the area contained within it.
Understood. So basically just having the mid-block have the same height potential as the northern block.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think council should consider increasing the allowable density for both.
Understood. Yeah. That's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, both of you, for accepting that friendly amendment.
And just to clarify, how would you like to word that consideration?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a planner, so I don't want to propose specific numbers here. I don't think that's valuable. So I guess to get exact.
I mean, what I heard is increasing the allowable density in the proposed urban plan village. Urban village plan.
Yeah, so basically recommend that council consider increasing the allowable density in the residential areas in this urban village plan.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any further comments? I see Commissioner Borosio.
Well, going to the language of the friendly amendment, does more dense mean higher? Because is that what you want? You want it to go higher is what I understood, but more dense could mean
great question.
Smaller square footage per unit.
Yeah, I said density because I didn't want to be overly prescriptive. Personally, it's not about what the building looks like, it's about how many people we can house there. But I don't know, staff, or Michael, is that a meaningful distinction in this kind of recommendation?
I think realistically, the heights that you see there kind of match the density that you see there. So if you do want to go higher density, you'd probably want to increase the heights to consummate with the density you're going to. Now, I mean, it's true. You could all have single room occupancies and you could get a lot of people in a short building. But the way the market works is they typically build 1 bedrooms and then 2 bedrooms and a few 3. And so that would mean likely taller buildings if you raise the density up.
And is the plan as written currently prescriptive about what types of units?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, so does that answer your question, Commissioner Borosio?
Well, it's just a consideration to be clear about your, as
right. And
the city attorney's recommended, that we got to be clear about this language. And one thing that I would also throw in is that if we do go high, we definitely don't want to leave the third block out of the picture, because we definitely want it to be in ratio, right? Because if it goes higher, but we're still at 45 feet, it's going to be a big drop in the third block. So maybe another consideration is to raise block 1, 2, but also to be in harmony and in ratio in the third block. So maybe 45 will go up as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I phrased this specifically around residential because my understanding of staff's intent is to not encourage redevelopment of the commercial area. But Michael, what's your thoughts here?
That's correct. The idea is to preserve that commercial space, like the existing commercial uses or those type of uses that are there going forward. And if you were to allow housing there, it would displace those businesses, and those type of businesses would not likely be coming back. You could allow taller heights for commercial, but frankly, we wouldn't see anyone building taller commercial here, so it'd probably be meaningless. So I think if you want to raise the heights, and because I think the goal is to allow more housing to support transit, one approach is to recommend raising them on the sites that are planned for housing. Assuming you agree for the need to preserve the sort of existing neighborhood serving uses that are there now, that would likely not be there if we encourage their redevelopment through housing on those sites.
Right, and the friendly amendment I had previously offered was specific to residential.
Correct.
But okay, so Commissioner Borosio, what are your thoughts given what Michael just said?
So if we can go back to the previous slide. So what you're saying is for the middle block to be 90, 90, 45, or do you want it to go like, say, 120, 90, 45? For example, right? I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah,
without putting numbers on it, but do you want the middle to match the first, or do you want both the first and the second to have a higher potential?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I intentionally left it pretty general. Just recommend that council consider increasing these. So whether it's, however it's done, I mean, if you think it's valuable to be more specific than I was, we can do that.
And I'll just tell you that if you're more specific, they're going to consider that specific recommendation rather than just a general increase residential density, right?
Yeah,
and which and leave it up to the council to decide.
Right, and I mean, I would imagine, just thinking about how these things go, I mean, like, if council is interested in what we're recommending, I imagine staff will be there saying, well, our intent is to have this step-down approach, and that would be part of the consideration as well. Would you say that's an accurate read, Michael? Yeah, so if you think it's important
No.
to include it, no, I don't want to steer one way or the other. Just
we can leave it.
Okay.
Like the way I heard it, it's open-ended, and you're right. I think City Council will chime in and lock in some sort of specific language. But I just wanted to make sure that the height was included in your desire to have it be more dense, right? Because I think more dense can still mean it's at the same height, but you want to recommend it to not have a fixed maximum, and maybe down the road at City Council, maybe they can put in that fixed maximum.
Right. I think regardless of how things go, they will arrive at a maximum. I didn't think it was valuable for us to make up a number and throw it in there.
Perfect, yep.
Commissioner Bickford?
Yeah, I heard what you both said, and I thought there was something in the presentation about some concern from the local citizens about height. And I am hesitant for this commission to say, well, we'd love for you to go higher and prescribe something that then has some significant controversy with the populace, right? So
Right.
I agree we should recommend density. I don't agree that we should recommend a height increase, if that helps.
Fair enough. And I guess just to speak to that myself, yeah, that's absolutely a concern. These things are always a balancing act. And so I guess for me, I trust that City Council is going to take that into consideration along with our recommendation and make what they think is the best decision regarding that. So I think it's valuable for us to make that suggestion. And even if City Council feels, hey, given everything that goes into this, what staff proposed is the appropriate limit, and they go with that, fair enough. But I think we should add that to the conversation. Okay. I don't see any further hands up, so, oh, yeah, Commissioner Alvario?
Would you say, though, overall in your thought process, as you look at this and you say, hey, here's a fixed rail station, we're planning development here, your viewpoint is there just could be potentially more?
Exactly. I think it's one of the best places to put housing. So
thanks.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment.
Oh yeah, Robert.
I think
go
the
ahead.
key word here is feasibility.
Yeah.
And what we've seen so far is that even currently there are developments that have been approved, but they are coming back to do less densities. So I think we could include that City Council may consider incentives that encourage the higher densities.
I like that. Would Vice Chair Ellis Wise and Commissioner Alvario be amenable to including that in our recommendation?
I mean, you're saying recommendation to offer incentives for the density? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we offer a range. If someone wants to plop something taller and denser, they have the option. But as it has been shared multiple times, will someone actually build it? We don't know. But per your suggestion, don't even let it be an obstacle. Just allow them to do it if someone's willing to do it. We just don't know. I'm not into offering, personally, I'm not into offering incentives, just because that's a broad topic that I think we don't even know the scope of. So that's my personal opinion.
Oh, and Commissioner Cantrell?
I'll just go back and say I do understand and I respect where you're coming from, but the reality is the market's going to drive what happens here. That's the reality. So I think if you're proposing higher density in terms of height and you leave it open-ended, you have to hope that City Council understands the community desire and is going to conform with that desire and not create headaches for people who live there and diminish potentially their property values or at least their own personal valuation on their properties after higher density. So I think I understand the goal, but I think the market drives the decision. And frankly, this station, the market's already spoken. Unless there's a significant change in the capacity of the rail system, and who knows when or how that may happen, I don't think it all matters that much, quite frankly. I'm not against it, but I think once you start changing these things after so much study, you run the risk of making an unforeseen negative impact. But that's all.
Thanks, Commissioner Cantrell. Commissioner Tordios?
I just wanted to speak and say that I was in favor of, raising the upper density limits here. It's definitely true that this station does not see much ridership today, but I think there's definitely potential here. I was looking at the timetables earlier today, and at peak, it's less than 15 minutes from this station to Diridon. So in a future where Google's campus gets built and there's additional, commercial development or job creation near that station, I think every station that is a short ride away from that station has increased potential for ridership if it densifies as well. And this could be, enabling for that. Not this year, probably not within the next 5 years, but at some point in the future, it definitely seems possible.
Thank you. Commissioner Ornelas, or Vice Chair Ornelas-Wise.
Can you hear me? I think definitely if you're going to increase density, you should increase height. Given the community concerns, I think it should just be maybe slightly higher than what's currently being proposed, and include early outreach to the community when a project comes in that's obviously really high or higher. I don't know all the early outreach policies that the city has, but I'm assuming that maybe a lot of these big projects, you encourage the developers to do early outreach. But yeah, so those are just my comments.
I think you do need to be aware where the state is going. There may not be outreach with development, or if it's done, it's because the developer does it out of the goodness of their heart, but not because they have to. And where the city is going in our housing element is doing a ministerial process for market rate development too. So I think we're trying to figure out ways you have a plan, and if you adhere to the plan, you have a very quick path to get built. So I just want to let you give that sort of background, that's kind of, even if the city doesn't go there, and we are looking at going there, the state is taking us there. So I think that's why this planning work now is more important than the past, because this is where the outreach happens. This is where the engagement happens. This is where you create the framework with the community input. After this point, it could be a ministerial approval that goes to Robert's desk. He looks at the boxes, check, signs it, you're done. And that's it.
Well, then I think...
I'm not saying that to discourage you from encouraging the council to consider more heights. Yeah. I'm just saying that so you're aware of how our world and your world as a planning commissioner is changing.
Yes, I see.
Last meetings.
Yeah. So I am in favor of the flexibility to allow some height, if you're going to allow some higher density, some height if needed, because if that's what it takes to make the project work and it pencils out financially for the developer, I think that we should allow them that flexibility, but not much higher than what is already proposed.
Commissioner Oliverio?
One more fun one. So let's say this all passes the city council, and then lo and behold, I don't know, we still don't have a resolution, or it's a legal interpretation, and someone says, I want to use builder's remedy to just put townhouses, then that's just going to be a matter of a court case to settle that for the attorney, and maybe.
Is that a question?
I don't know.
What are you
It's
trying to
just, I
say?
mean, it's all, you know, he brings up the topic of state government and this and that, and all this could be for naught. So never mind. It just opened up the reality that local control is limited control. Thanks.
All right, so I don't see any other hands up, so if there's no further comments, we will go to a roll call vote. As a reminder, what we're considering is the staff recommendation with our included recommendation that City Council consider increasing the allowable density for the residential areas in this plan over what staff is proposing.
And heights too, I believe you said, right? Just to clarify.
Should we explicitly say density and height?
Or is it density? Is it density and then in a parenthetical, e.g., increasing height, or is it actually
What you could say
density
is
and height?
increase the density and increase the heights consonant with the density that you raise it to.
Density and height, and there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I think density and height is good.
So just for the people who are going to listen to this and try to make sense of what to write for your recommendation, just repeat it.
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea.
It's going to be Eric who's probably listening to the tape a week from now.
Yeah. So recommend that City Council consider increasing the allowable residential density and height over what staff has proposed in the plan. Okay, we'll go to the vote now. Vice Chair Ornelas Wise,
Yes.
Commissioner Borosio,
Yes.
Commissioner Bickford,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey's not present, Commissioner Garcia is not present, Commissioner Oliverio,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosario is not present, Commissioner Tordios,
Yes.
Commissioner Young is not present, and myself, yes. I believe that is 7 yes, 0 no, and 4 absences. All right, so that passes. All right, and my script from staff says that we will actually continue this general plan hearing to the November 15th meeting rather than close it tonight. All right, and then do we have anything for referrals from city council, boards, commissions, or other agencies? Okay, we do not. We'll move on to good and welfare. Do we have a report from city council?
Yes, we.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Robert.
we do. For October 17th, City Council approved a planned development permit for real property located at 657 Horning Street. That came through this commission. Council also approved a rezoning and planned development permit for real property located at 960 West Haddon Street, which also came through us. And then the conditional use permit for real property located at 2nd West Santa Clara Street, which also came from our commission. On October 24th, City Council approved the Evergreen East Hills Area Development Policy General Plan Text Amendment, including an ordinance update to Title 14 Evergreen East Hills Development Policy Traffic Impact Fee Requirement. That also came through this commission. It was approved. And the several properties that were rezoned in compliance with Senate Bill 1333 were also approved. And yesterday, City Council approved the planned development rezoning on real property located at 1655 Lincoln Avenue. That came through this commission. That's it.
Thank you, Robert. Do we have anything for subcommittee formation reports or outstanding business? Okay. And then we have something under commission calendar and study sessions. We're being asked to review and approve the 2024 Planning Commission meeting schedule. I took a look at it. It looks like it's just the standard schedule we usually have. Is that accurate? Yes. Do we need to put it on the screen or anything? No.
You want to have themed evenings, like dress a certain way or something?
I think we'd have to agendize that, Commissioner Oliverio. Okay, if there's no objection to the proposed 2024 meeting schedule, let's have a vote. Oh, Commissioner Bickford, go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate
No,
time.
go ahead.
But in our last meeting, we talked about a planning session.
Oh, the study session, yes.
And I don't see that anywhere on the agenda. I just wondered if we could.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yes, the consensus based on the responses we got from you all seems to be November 17th, so that is the date. We are still working on the agenda, and commissioners will be notified in advance of the date. Yep. And I know at least one or two of you wouldn't be able to make it, but unfortunately that was the date that has been said. Okay.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Bickford? Okay. All right, so let's go to a vote on approving the 2024 meeting schedule. Vice Chair Onellis Wise?
Yes.
Commissioner Barosio?
Yes.
Commissioner Bickford?
Yes.
Commissioner Cantrell?
Yes.
Casey and Garcia are absent. Commissioner Oliverio?
Yes.
Rosario's absent. Commissioner Tordios?
Yes.
Young is absent, and myself, yes. I believe that's 7 yes, 0 no, and 4 absences. Okay, we've approved the 2024 meeting schedule. Anything for the public record? Okay, and then before we adjourn tonight, City Attorney is concerned about us meeting quorum at our next meeting next Wednesday, November 15th. Is there anyone here tonight who will not be able to attend that meeting? I see Commissioner Bickford and Commissioner Cantrell. Okay, so that's 2 down. We need 6 for quorum. So,
So the issue with voting to approve a general plan amendment, you need a majority of the members of the body.
oh, to vote yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another,
Which is at least 6.
You just need 4.
no, he's saying of the, when we,
need 6.
right.
Yeah, if 6 show up, all 6 need to vote affirmatively for it to pass. Yeah.
Yeah, so Commissioner Bickford, Commissioner Cantrell can't make it. Hopefully our colleagues who aren't here tonight can make it, and everyone else, please try to do your best to make it. So that we have.
I should say that some of the items, unless I'm wrong, some of the items that are going are related to the housing element. So we really need the Planning Commission to show up. We're under a timeline, and if we don't have quorum, we'll have to schedule a special session of the Planning Commission another day.
Okay, and
Right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, on Thanksgiving Day, just kidding.
and Michael, I think, is it appropriate for me to ask, since you brought that up, I think last time you gave us an update, the goal was to submit by Halloween for the housing element. What's the current target?
Am I allowed to, I can answer that. Is that okay, Daniel, if I answer that?
I actually didn't hear the question.
Oh, since Michael brought up the housing element, I asked, last time we heard about it, the goal for submittal was Halloween, but that's passed. I wanted to ask what the current goal is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The current goal is the end of the month, beginning of the month, so end of November, early December, but TBD.
Okay, thank you.
We have to post it publicly for at least
Right.
7 days, and so early December-ish probably.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And that concludes tonight's agenda. So we are adjourning at 7:48 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Don't forget to validate your parking.